Have you ever stopped to think about how amazing it is that you can send your voice through a wire? I mean, it sounds kind of normal to us now, right? But it all started with just one question from one little boy. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Alexander Graham Bell, the kid whose simple curiosity, believe it or not, ended up connecting the entire planet.
All right, so let's set the scene. We're going way back in time to the beautiful city of Edinburgh. And that's where we meet this really curious little boy named Alexander. But, to his family and friends, he was just Alec.
Okay, so where does an idea that big even come from? It's huge. Well, to really get the invention, we've got to get to know the boy behind it. So let's go right back to the beginning, to his childhood.
You see, Alec's whole world, his entire world, was all about sound. His dad literally studied how people spoke, and his grandpa was this amazing storyteller. So Alec, he was just surrounded by it. He basically became a professional listener, just soaking it all in. The birds singing, the sound of horses on the old cobblestone streets, everything.
But the most important person in his life, well, that was his mother. He was super close to her. And here's the thing, she couldn't hear very well. And this, right here, this wasn't just some small detail in his life. It became the single most important thing that shaped how he thought about communication.
So this huge question he had, it really came from a place of love. To talk to his mom, he would get really close and press his lips to her forehead, just so she could feel the vibrations of his voice. Can you imagine that? And it was right there, in that simple, quiet moment, that this world-changing idea sparked to life. He thought, what if I could make my voice travel, not just through touch, but over any distance, so that absolutely everyone could hear?
And that question he had as a kid, it didn't just fade away. Nope, it stuck with him, and it grew and grew, becoming this lifelong adventure, the adventure of an inventor.
Alec's bedroom, it was not your typical kid's room. Forget toys. This place was a workshop. It was just this awesome mess of wires and bits of metal and old tools, you name it. He was always tinkering. He and his brother even built a machine to try and copy a human voice. For Alec, these experiments were the greatest adventures.
And this fascination with sound, it wasn't just some hobby. It actually became his profession. He moved to Boston and dedicated himself to teaching deaf students, helping them communicate. This work wasn't a detour from his goal. It was central to his quest. It made him think even deeper about how sound and voices really, truly work.
And this is where his big questions started to get really specific. He started thinking about electricity, which, back then, was this super mysterious, kind of magical force. And he wondered, could I somehow merge sound with electricity? Now that sounded absolutely crazy at the time, totally impossible. But you know what? Alec really liked impossible ideas.
Okay, so now we're getting to the really good part, the big moment. We're heading into the workshop, where all those years of questions and countless experiments are about to lead to a breakthrough that nobody saw coming.
Just picture it, a room that's just a total creative chaos. Wires hanging from the ceiling, metal parts clinking all over the place, and yeah, sometimes literal sparks were flying. This was his zone, the space he shared with his dedicated assistant, a guy named Thomas Watson. It was right there, in the middle of all that mess, that everything was about to change.
But listen, inventing stuff is never a straight line. So many of his experiments failed. We're talking machines that just made weird buzzing noises, or just nothing at all. But here's the key. He never gave up. He saw every single failure not as a dead end, but as a crucial lesson.
And then it happened. One afternoon in 1876. And it wasn't some grand planned eureka moment. It actually started with a total accident. While he was working on yet another device, Alec spilled some acid and instinctively called out to his assistant for help.
These were the words. Simple, urgent. Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you. Not something you'd think would end up in the history books, right? But they became the very first words ever transmitted through a wire, a moment that would literally echo through time.
And Watson, who was in a totally different room, heard him, not faintly through the walls, but clearly through the machine as if Alec were standing right next to him. That voice had traveled through the wire. The impossible idea was suddenly real. And just like that, the telephone had been born.
Wow, the invention itself is one thing, but its impact? That's a whole other story.
Let's look at how this one device completely reshaped human connection and made our huge world feel just a little bit smaller.
I mean, the change was just night and day. Think about it. Before the telephone, connecting with someone far away meant writing a letter that might take weeks to arrive. Afterwards, you could hear their voice instantly. Distance, for the very first time in human history, began to shrink.
And think about what this really meant for people. A mother could hear her son's voice from another city. Friends could share laughter and news across borders in an instant. This wasn't just a new tool. It was a completely new way for people to stay connected. So what's the real lesson from all of this? It's not just about wires and electricity. It's about the incredible power of just being curious. You know, Alec himself said it best. When one door closes, another opens. See, for him, inventing the telephone wasn't the end of the line. He went on to explore flying machines and countless other ideas, proving that true curiosity is a journey, not a destination. Every answer simply leads to the next exciting question.
So, what can we take away from his story? It's pretty simple, really. Pay attention to the world around you. Don't be afraid to ask those big, even impossible questions. Be brave enough to try things, even if you might fail. And most importantly, never, ever let your curiosity fade.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway. It all started with a boy who loved his mother and asked a simple question. It's such a powerful reminder that the biggest changes in the world often begin with the smallest spark of curiosity. So, what question will you ask today?